And we are back again. Let's see. Where were we? We got the announce stuff working. We've got the prompt setting for it, but at the moment all of this stuff is basically just sitting in a test button for no good reason. Um, the reason was we needed to test that it actually works, and in doing so we did find a little problem that we also solved, so that's good. Um, Hence why testing is so important. Pretty much anything and everything you do, make sure that you test the code that you write, because you could end up with things you didn't expect. Just like we didn't expect the server to throw the Archon connection if we basically spammed it with messages. Um, So good thing that we found that out and got a fix implemented for it, so we can properly reconnect. The next bit that we basically need to add to this is probably a bunch of UI expansion, so that we can build up custom UI elements to handle all these custom messages and the color formatting and all that stuff. Let's have a quick look at these particular dialogues that we've got and see if we can put some stuff in there somewhere. We'll leave the test button on there for now. We will remove it later. Okay, so in here we might want to put up the announcement prompt in here so we can customize it. We could build a customization dialog that lets us build these messages and have it render the text in the colors, so we can see the actual results of what we're doing with the text. As we saw on, actually we'll fire it up again just to see. I'll get this one started. There we go. Started and connected, and we'll go back in here quick. All right, so when we look at the actual in-game chat, we see that it puts sort of a semi-transparent black background behind the text, and then shows the text on top of it. It also puts in a faint shadow effect on the text itself. And of course it's using the built-in basically a bitmap font. It's located in a PNG file inside the client jar, which is something that we can fairly easily extract. A jar is basically a zip file. If you don't have any particular unarchived program, like for example 7-zip or WinRAR, that can handle extracting and opening jars, you can simply rename the extension from jar to zip and then use whatever zip compatible archive program you've got to open up the jar and get at the files. Just a small trick. In previous versions of the .NET framework, before framework 4, I think, or was it 4.5? I can't remember. The built-in zip references that comes with the .NET framework were unable to handle if you passed a jar file to the unzipper. It just, I can't figure this out. And the only difference was the name of the extension. If you pass a jar to the unzipper in the newer versions of the .NET framework, it will correctly look at the actual data in the file and see, hey, this is a regular zip file, so I'll just unzip that. Some kind of oversight on Microsoft's part that basically caused this particular issue. So one of those things. In any case, I think it would be kind of cool if we could add in some kind of UI element to our launcher program where we can build these custom texts and have it render them in basically the correct font. We could easily just double it up like I've done with the UI here in the game client. That shouldn't be a huge issue doing. Alternatively, we can, of course, just use the standard font rendering that comes with doing things in with the graphics object. However, doing that means that we need to do some string measuring to figure out exactly how much space rendering this text takes up on the UI, and then calculate some kind of spacing difference, because the measure string of the graphics object actually measures the string to be a little bit bigger than it in reality is. So sometimes it can be a little bit finicky calculating those offset spaces and getting the actually rendered text to align correctly. Hiya, Jovan. Yeah, I've put in some custom greeting messages to my loyal viewers, just to show my appreciation for the support that you're giving me. Figured that would be a good thing to do. In any case, we do have different means of achieving this. I think we should see about building some kind of extra dialog that lets us build this customized text rendering stuff, and then see if we can utilize the actual font from the game itself, and embed that somehow into our application, so we don't have to rely on the game client. Seeing as this is a server launcher, it would make little sense to have a requirement of the game client just to get at the font itself. So we'll see if we can make use of that somehow. Let's disconnect from here. Updates correctly as it should. Let's shut it down. There we go. And terminate this because we don't need it anymore. So how are we going to do this? Well, I actually went ahead and did extract some of these resources. Now I can't exactly remember where I put them, but this is an extraction of the 1.12.2 client jar. When you extract it, you'll get an insane amount of .class files, which are all of the different Java classes built into bytecode that the VM understands, plus all the extra stuff that comes with it. In the assets folder, we'll find Minecraft. In here, we'll find all of these different folders, which contains God knows what. Font contains the binary version of all the different text glyphs that are rendered. And in here in the textures, I believe, is another folder called font, which contains actual PNGs of all the different Unicode characters and so on and so forth. They're all here. Like I said, this is a direct extraction of the actual jar for the Minecraft client itself. So I know that it can be pretty difficult seeing these white on a bright background, but basically all of the different characters are here. And for the sake of making them a little more visible, I've actually done a bit of conversion here, and this should be a lot more visible. There we go. These are all the different characters. Have I watched anything from MS Build? Not lately. I simply haven't had the time. In any case, we've got a PNG with all the different glyphs put in here. I basically re-rendered all of them in different, in the 16 different colors. That's the basic color setup, including the actual shadowing that the game does. These are taken directly from the wiki. As you can see, it's sitting right here on the side, and it uses the actual colors that the game uses as well. So we have all of the correct color references here, both in hex values and in RGB, plus an extra listing for measure, which includes all of the shading. Now, one of the interesting things that the game actually does is it grabs the main color that's being applied to the text and then internally shades them down. It does not use the actual other color as part of it. It simply just shades the color down on its own. So if we're going to do some kind of rendering for this, that's something that we might want to do as well, just to keep in line with what it actually does. This particular shading is basically just a tone down of the color values. So for the dark blue, it converts 42 on the blue channel to something different. We can do the actual color picking and then figure out exactly how much it subtracts from the original color to produce the shaded version of it. Or we could simply just mess with, say, the alpha channel and tone it down that way and see what kind of results we can get out of it. In any case, that's something that we'll see when we start doing the actual rendering. The font itself, in this particular setup, these 16 PNGs right here, I actually created these for a sort of guide setup that I used to have on one of my sites that showcased how to use some of the essential stuff, some of the trade plugins and so on and so forth, where color was supported on, say, for example, signs and stuff. And to get that working on the web, I created these texture atlases with the fonts inside, so I could simply just copy those characters out of the PNG and render them on the web page as an actual colored text on the sign. Now, one interesting thing that we didn't get to see on the game client, but if we run this again quick, start this up. There we go. Connect back in. All right, so as we can see here, the game client treats each letter as if it was a non-monospace character. So if we look at the font itself, we can see that each of these letters, characters, are actually um, drawn within, I believe it's an 8 by 8 setup, 8 by 8 pixels. Um, and the game client internally somewhere basically removes any excessive empty pixels and just leaves one pixel spacing between each character. Have a good one, Joban. Um, so if we build up some kind of rendering method that does render the characters based on these glyphs, that's something that we will need to do as well. These are rendered with just one pixel between each, so it's something that we may want to implement in our setup as well. All right, so what do we need to do to actually build this? Well, there are a number of different ways we can approach this particular problem. Um, Problems exist for us to solve. That's the whole purpose of us doing anything in code anyway. So we need to work out how to actually handle this setup. So first of all, we kind of need some way of basically accessing all these different glyphs so we can properly draw them. We need some way of storing them, either by going through the game client assets, textures, font, and I guess storing these 224 different PNGs. Each one has a different set of Unicode glyphs to whatever setup it is required to properly render all the different characters. That could pretty quickly get a little bit messy if we want to support all of it. But of course, we could always just grab all of these PNGs and just embed them as a resource like we did with the status icons. Alternatively, we could see if we can write some kind of code that can basically grab these PNGs. They are each 128 by 128 pixels with 16 characters per line. So if we quickly grab 128 and divide by 16, we get a size of 8 pixels. So we know that each glyph is 8 pixels by 8 pixels. And that basically tells us that we can do some bit manipulation and stuff each basically line of a glyph into a single byte, because one byte contains 8 bits. So we can do some glyph compression, converting 64 pixels into 8 bytes, which means less data being stored, which means we can more quickly access stuff. And it doesn't take up all that much space to actually store that binary information somewhere. So that's some of the stuff that we can do. From there, we need to work out a way to render these glyphs and characters. At some point, I should actually try and grab all these and convert them into something that we can actually view. These look like Chinese symbols of some kind. Have no clue what they mean. So I wouldn't be able to correctly convert all these, to be honest. I guess we need some kind of a lookup table to grab all of these. Whoa, those look like hieroglyphs. Yeah, I don't know. um, in any case, if we start with, say, the standard ASCII interface, then we can move on from there and see if we can do some proper Unicode conversion at some point if we really needed to add in full support for everything. Um, I think for to begin with, it should be fairly sufficient to just do the standard ASCII interface for it. Let's see, go back here, quick, graphics, default font. So these cover A to Z. In both cases, it's got some of the international symbols in here, like U umlaut. It's got the A umlaut. It's got a bunch of different ones in here, so this might suffice to begin with. Yeah, let's grab it from there. Um, we also know that we have a proper reference of the colors themselves, so it shouldn't be all that big of an issue actually rendering them. And as far as we can see, doing the shading for them, it's basically just rendering the text twice with a one pixel offset, 1 pixel down, 1 pixel to the right, compared to where the text actually has to go. So it shouldn't be a huge issue for us to build up something that can do the shading if we really wanted to. All right, let's get this stuff shut down and see if we can at least get, whoops, get something started for this. Here we go. Okay, so let's see. We need a text customization dialog of some kind so that we can start building these. So how are we going to build up that? Well, I'm kind of thinking that it would be nice to more or less borrow a page from this tellraw generator. Basically, when we add in a text here, we get a drop-down that lets us pick some random color from the existing list. I'm kind of thinking that if we basically build up a regular text box that lets us type in these, where is it? These custom formatting of the text, and then have the dialog render the actual text using the Minecraft font, we should be fairly well set. Alternatively, we can go and see if we can find perhaps some custom font somewhere that matches, or maybe use one of the built-in system fonts to see if we can do something similar, and then render it from there. But in either case, if we use the regular drawstring, we still run into the problem of measure string being slightly offset or incorrect. And it's difficult to correctly calculate how much pixel spacing measure string actually adds to each individual measurement. It's easy enough to do on monospace fonts because they are basically all the same size, but in this particular instance it'll be rather difficult doing. Alright, so let's see if we can add in a new dialog of some kind. Let's add in another Windows form. There we go, and we'll do, let's call this custom text dialog. There we go, and then I'll move it up to the dialogs folder like that. There we go, and just for the sake of keeping things somewhat unified, custom text. We'll put the initial colors the same as the rest of them, which would be right here and this one. And the text we did as that one. There we go. All right. So, just like we did on the main form, we will definitely have to do some custom rendering here to have it render the text that we're constructing correctly. I'm thinking it would be nice if we can basically show a list of the correct colors and include what kind of code we need to put into the text box to have the following text render in whatever color is selected. It would also be nice if we can select part of the text in the input box and then click on one of the colors and have this dialog automatically insert the correct control tag for that particular color, so we can effectively have it help us build up the custom text, custom colored text in the correct format. So that's part of the stuff that would be nice to have in here. We'll do a bit of code cleanup, constructor. There we go. Move the one down here. There we go. We also need to put in form events like so, and the end region. All right. So, in order for us to render stuff custom, we need to set the style for it. So we need to do the painting ourselves. We want to, let's see, optimize double buffer to reduce any kind of flickering, and we'll have it redraw whenever it's resized. And of course we need to tell it that we will be doing the painting stuff ourselves, and then enable all these bits and set it up so it's more. There we go. Whoops, this one needs to go there. All right. So now we've told the Windows renderer that we want to do some custom stuff here. So of course we also need to hook the rendering stuff, the on paint rendering stuff to form. So we'll grab the protected override void on paint, if I could spell. There we go. And then from here we can do add in the custom text rendering stuff. There we go. All right, we'll do that later. We still need to put in some kind of text box where we can edit the actual text that goes in there. And just for the sake of keeping things somewhat similar to what we already have, I think we're going to borrow a little bit from our main form and do sort of a line across, and then put some whatchamacallits, controls at the bottom of the window. So we definitely need a text box so we can put text in there. which of course we need to customize as well. This will be we'll just call it text, that's fine. Back color needs to be the dark one. We need to change the border of it to be fixed single. There we go. And then we need to change the forecolor to be white. There we go. Much better. Alright, so we might also want to, just for the sake of better visibility, increase the font size. So let's do, I don't know, 11. Probably a little better. So we'll put that in here. And then we'll see if we can do something about those 16 colors. So let's have a look at those quick. There we go. So we could go ahead and organize these colors a little bit so that, say for example, we pair together the two blues, the two greens, the two aquas, the two reds, and so on and so forth, and then do the black to white as sort of a grayscale shading setup. Or we can just do them basically in one go. Let's see, yeah, if we do them, we'll cut them in half and put the darker half on top and the lighter half at the bottom. Alright, you have a great day, Sir Pinwheel. Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. Where are we? There. So I think we'll just do the split in two setup and possibly render those custom as well, so we don't have to mess with a ton of different controls just to get that stuff shown. In terms of being able to click them, that kind of implies that we need to do some kind of mouse handling. We'll need to set up some kind of hit check for it. We also need a couple of buttons here actually. So we'll need a accept and a cancel. We'll put those down here and move that down here, I guess, something like that. These need to be changed so that we can have a proper color on it. Let's go with control text like so, and the same thing for the other button. I actually can't remember what we did on the other dialogues, but I guess we could take a quick look. I think these were set to control text, yes. Alright, there we go. This would be our future accept button, like so. So we'll put accept in there. And this will be the cancel button. And put cancel in there. And then for the sake of getting some shortcut keys, we'll assign the buttons here as well. So we can just press enter and that will automatically click the accept button, and the same for cancel, which would allow us to hit escape, which would then act as if we clicked the cancel button. One more thing that we want to do for the form, we want to change the border style to become a fixed dialog, and then we will remove the maximize box as well as the minimize box because we don't need them. There we go. Alright, now we've got a proper dialog, and we'll see how much this actually takes up. Let's see. Actually, we would like to get a little bit more spacing here. Are these at the same height location? 413. Ugh. Let's do 412. There we go. Now they are at the same Y location. All right, cool. Okay, so to do this, we definitely also need to put in some kind of property where we can pass an existing customized text as well as retrieve it when we're done editing the text itself. So we'll do, sorry, this needs to be properties, and then we'll add in a property right here. We'll call this custom text, like so, and then we'll do some this one and set it up. Custom text, we need a getter, return this thingamajig, and then we'll do a set, and we'll do custom text equals value. Should we trim it? I guess not. To do perhaps force a render update. We don't know yet. We may have to force a render update at some point. We'll see as we progress through this. We know at some point we're going to have to do something in terms of either using the existing font image or do some kind of conversion. Let's see. Basically, this is the one that we need to use as a source, and then do some kind of conversion so we can get things set up correctly. In the game client, right here, we've got them all, and I guess we could just grab the ASCII PNG and embed that as a resource and then convert it into a font object of some kind, so we can do the rendering, and then build up some font rendering methods for us so we can render this a little easier than just going about, say, splitting it into 256 individual bitmaps and then rendering those according to where it needs to go. We'll run into some kind of issue with how big each individual glyph is, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of different things that we need to handle to get this properly working. But we'll leave that for a future episode to figure out. For now, we'll just see if we can get the initial dialog stuff up and running. All right. So let's see. Yeah, we definitely know that at some point we're going to need to render, say, a black background here somewhere. So we can render the colored text on top of that, so we can distinguish it. Let's see if we do something along the lines of, let's get these anchored so we can more easily resize the form if need be. We'll anchor it here instead, like so. See if this derps up. It didn't. We'll do the same thing for the buttons. Basically, by anchoring them to the bottom right corner, that will be the relative positioning for each of these controls, so we can change them a little easier just by resizing the form. Actually, I think the text box needs to be anchored to the left as well, like so. There we go. And now we should be able to resize it and have them scale correctly. Yep, nice. All right, so um, let's see. We definitely need to start by putting in a black background. So let's do that. And we'll do, let's see, a spacing of, I don't know, let's do a spacing of 7. Um, let's see, get the graphics thingamajig. We'll do a fill rectangle. We need a black brush for a black background. So we'll grab that one. And then we need to specify a rectangle that fits within the visible part of the form itself. To help us do that, we actually have a nice little feature available to us that we might as well make use of. The form itself has a rectangle that specifies the exact client area, meaning our entire graphical surface within the window borders themselves. So we'll make use of that. We'll do a new rectangle here, rectangle, and then grab the client rectangle and offset it a little bit. So if we, let's say we put a spacing of 7 in there, so we'll start at 7.7 and then get the client rectangle, the width of that minus 14 because we want 7 pixels of spacing to the left as well as 7 pixels of spacing to the right, regardless what size the window is. So we'll do minus 14 and then we'll do a specific height of say, I don't know, we'll do 70 pixels. That should be enough, more than enough. If we double up on the built-in Minecraft font size, then we effectively get a height of 16 pixels. If we add in the shading, then we need to add another 2 pixels for the shading, so we'll end up having a height of 18, so 70 should be more than sufficient to render this. Alright, let's see. Up here we need to add in at some point, of course, the custom text rendering stuff that we will be building. We kind of want to put in, actually we want to hook the shown event as well, so we can update the text box with whatever was passed in our custom text property, and of course also force the focus to be on the text box itself. So we'll do that in the shown event because that's basically the safest place to do it, to make sure that it actually does happen correctly. So we'll grab the custom text and stuff it in there, and then we'll focus it. So it'll have the cursor focused on the text box itself to begin with. There we go. Put the accept and cancel buttons in here. Now we've while we are at it, there we go. We'll grab these and move them up to a region by itself, like right here, for example. Control events. There we go. Stuff them in here. Job done. The cancel button needs to have this one respond with a cancel, and the accept button for now we will not have do anything. And in set code to update the custom text property and return dialog. Okay. All right. All right. So we still need a way to actually get to this custom text dialog. We'll use it as sort of a color picker, except for this it of course will be for customizing some kind of text that goes to the game client by means of the server. So there are a couple of different places where we want to do this kind of customization. One would be in here in terms of customizing message of the day. Another spot would be for the server profile, add in a custom chat prompt. So we'll definitely need to update these as well to add in that kind of customization. Auto start this server. Yeah, we definitely need to make a lot of changes here. Actually, I think we will dig into all this stuff on Friday instead, and then call it a day. We managed to get a couple of bugs fixed. We managed to build a conversion class that can handle custom color formatting for both the server properties MOTD setting as well as the actual in-game chat stuff using the JSON chat elements as required by the game. So we got those fixed. We've tested them, and in doing so we did find a couple of bugs that or oversights that we got fixed. So we actually managed to get quite a few things done today. We've added a new dialog that we need to implement. We still need to figure out exactly how to build the text rendering stuff, but we'll do that as part of the custom text dialog implementation. So we can do all that cool stuff there. So on Friday, we will see about adding in customization options for the server config dialog as well as the server profile config dialog. We may need to move things around a little bit so we can get them in there. The idea is, of course, to be able to put a custom announcement prompt, possibly a custom broadcast prompt as part of the core profile setup. And in here allow us to customize message of the day if we want to do that. We will probably need to add in additional changes to the schedule dialog so we can add in settings that allow us to configure player warnings before the server restarts or shuts down for maintenance backup stuff. So we will probably also have to dig into both the schedule handling, the schedule profiles, as well as the actual schedule manager that will handle all this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to dig into. In any case, I think I'll call it a day. Any kind of questions, feedback, suggestions, chat is as always open for it. Don't be shy. And I'll see you guys next time.